Hey, Advisor Nation. Before we jump in, tap follow, hit the five-star rating, and smash like so you never miss another moment of our life-changing episode. Welcome back to The Advisor with Stacey Chillemi, the show that turns visionary ideas into real-world results. Today, we're tackling one of the hardest valleys, healing after profound loss, with someone who's walked through the path and now lights the ways for others. 9 years ago, CarolAnn Tutera lost her husband. Since then, she's become a beacon for resilience, self-love, and recovering joy. CarolAnn, thank you for joining us and your courage for sharing this story. CarolAnn, before we begin and explore, I'd like to, talk about some of the strategies and tools that you can paint us a picture of at the moment you realize something has to change. I'm ready to move forward to this heartbreak to hope. A lot of people get to that point where they don't want to feel that grief anymore. They want to move forward, and some people, but they just don't know how. They kind of feel lost in the moment. They feel that pain in their heart and they just don't know how they can, the next step. What can they do? Because they don't want to feel like this anymore. For you, how did you move from heartbreak to hope?
Great question. It's a really fully loaded question because you have to go through the pain. There's just no way around it. You can't just wake up one day and say, that's it, I'm done, and ignore it. Because if you do that, if that's your choice, that's always your choice, it will come back to get me and to get you. And I experienced that myself. And I experienced it even years later and I've dealt with the grief so much because I love discovering who I am. And there'll be something that I'll look at, I'll think about, whether it's about my late husband or even my two dogs I just lost. I look at their picture and I get teary. Um, so it's so important to acknowledge and honor the grief and all the different stages. And the stages don't go, okay, I'm done with anger. What's next? They don't work like that. They'll bounce around all the time. And you wake up at a moment and you realize I'm not feeling as bad as I did yesterday. And for a lot of people, sometimes it takes going to a counselor one-on-one. Sometimes it's a grief group where you sit and talk. And sometimes even when you go into a grief group, the one thing you want to do that's important for everybody going through grief, share your story. You need to share your story. It's really important. And be around people who are willing to listen to your story because that's important. We just want to be heard. I remember driving back from California where I sold our home and I was with my sister. I was fine. And then all of a sudden, I'm not fine. And the tears start flowing. And she said, no, what's wrong now? I know she was being heartfelt, but it hits you like a ton of bricks to experience that grief. It washes over you like a waterfall at times. And
Yeah.
you accept it and you have to it's cleansing the soul when you cry, and that's what the soul needs. It needs that good cleansing. So it's important to feel it because then one day you do wake up and you realize, wow, I'm not feeling as bad as I did yesterday. So today's going to be a good day. And if you can get through a couple of hours, you're doing great. Yeah, it's like being part of an Al-Anon group, a day at a time. Well, sometimes it's not so much a day. Sometimes it's a half a day. Sometimes it's an hour. Let's break it down to a minute. If I
Yeah.
can get through the next couple of minutes without crying or thinking about it or feeling depressed, um, and a way that I also recommend is affirmations. Put them up. I feel wonderful. I love myself. I'm a valuable and worthwhile person. There's some wonderful spiritual affirmation books out there. Of course, my all-time favorite is Louise Hay. That's how I started my path in the in the 80s with her and Wayne Dyer. For me, that's what helped me. A lot of people will go to church and pray or go to a synagogue or a mosque, whatever their religion takes them to,
Yeah.
do what's comfortable for you. Absolutely. It's important.
I like that answer. That's a really good answer. Now, what did the first mornings without your husband feel like? And how did you give yourself the permission to just breathe?
Oh, they were crappy. They literally were for shit. I didn't know what it was like to not have him by my bedside. I felt alone. I was wounded. I was angry. I was sad. I had an entire range of a downward spiral of emotions. Um, I had a friend who would text me every morning because she had lost her husband a couple of years prior to me, who would send me positive statements, who would send me books on grief and say, "Did you read this chapter yet?" It was
Yeah.
somebody who knew what I was going through, which is why it's important to find that one person who's close with you, who can sit and listen to
Yeah.
you and understand what you're going through. There were times I all I could do is cry with her on the phone, and that was it. And
Yeah.
that's okay because I knew she was there and she heard the crying.
Yeah.
It's that hearing that's so important for us. It I don't know why I haven't gotten into the scientific part of it, and maybe there is none, but emotionally and spiritually, it's huge. It truly is. And my mom would call and see if I got out of bed in the morning. I come from a very strong family.
Yeah.
Push, push, push. We just kept pushing through everything. I never
Yeah.
dealt with emotions until I was in my 30s. And this happened 30 years later. So, yeah, it's something I had to make myself do.
Yeah. And that is a very hard thing to do. Now, you say that hope is a skill. What does that mean? How can listeners start to practice it?
Practicing hope.
Yeah. Because after loss, you don't really feel that hope that, right now you're just struggling and all you see is that dark cloud. How do you get out of that dark cloud and somehow get that, the feeling of hope that I can get through this. I can live my life. I can move forward. I can, experience joy and happiness, again, because sometimes the words joy and happiness don't even feel like they exist anymore after you lose someone you love.
Honestly, I wish I had a magic wand where you get bopped on the head and then hope is like a ray of light in your life again.
Yeah.
But there is no magic to saying, well, hope's going to be there. It will be there one day. You've got to go through the grief and the sadness and the depression and the anger and the guilt and the denial before you can get there. That's
Yeah.
the only way to open that door to hope. And you stated some things, just like an affirmation. I know hope is there. I going to be better. I love my life. All it takes is one statement. It's really reframing what's going on in the mind.
Right. And that's so true. Affirmations are so powerful. I like when people do it in the morning. I always suggest like if you could post it on your bathroom mirror and as soon as you wake up and you go in there to brush your teeth and you see that affirmation, just it could change your mindset. It can change the way you look at things the rest of the day. It can give you different feeling of how you feel about life for the entire day just by doing something as simple as affirmations.
It does. And then I also came across somebody I love to listen to
Hmm.
where he said, wake up every day with joy. It's that simple. You
Yeah.
got to wake up today. You were brought back to the body. You're here. Wake up and say, oh my God, what kind of fun can I have today? There's
Yeah.
so many things we do during the day that we don't realize we do automatically. You get in a car and press a button now. You used to have a key, but either way, I mean, how exciting is that? You actually know how to start a car. You actually know you can drive a car. You can
Yeah.
talk to people and they understand what you're saying. Well, let's hope they do. But that find the little things that bring you pleasure.
Right. So it seems like gratitude played a big role in this also.
Gratitude plays a big role in my life overall. That's a huge, powerful energy of love right there. It truly is. If you can start finding small little things to be grateful for, you've got a refrigerator with some food in it. I have children still who love me. I have good friends who I'm surrounded with. You may not want to be around them right now during this time, but they're still there for you, and that's
Right.
powerful.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't have my son, he was grown at the time and living in another state, but I had two dogs, and I was so grateful for my dogs at the time. They got me out of bed. I loved to dress them because they were only 2 and 4 pounds. They had matching outfits. They'd go with
Mhm.
me everywhere. Oh my gosh. They were the love of my lives. They truly brought me a lot of joy. And then I got back into baking. I love to bake. So find something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Go bowling. Go for a nature walk. That feels good.
Yeah.
Maybe you like to do bread. Maybe you like to cook for others. Maybe you'll cook for yourself.
Right.
It's doing things that make you feel good, and the self-care during this time, huge.
Yes.
Huge. I cannot explain enough reasons why it's so important to take care of yourself. It truly is. And sometimes we have to back the train into the station and explain what self-help is because no one really was taught about helping themselves. We don't know what it is to love ourselves. We don't know how to care for ourselves. As women, we are great nurturers and tend to others' needs, but when it comes to ourselves, it's like a foreign alien has dropped in.
Yes.
So I tell others, whatever you do for someone else, do it for yourself.
Right.
It's really simple. I hated going out to dinners and meals by myself. And I felt like, oh, wow, what's wrong with her? People are staring at me. She's by herself. Why is she by herself? And the mind just rattles on, and you've got to stop that rattle noise that it makes. And I've
Yeah.
come to really enjoy that. So you find just getting out and doing things, playing sports with others, you slowly start rebuilding a life just by putting one foot in front of the other. And you give yourself permission to fall. A lot of people think, well, great, the door's open, I'm going to race right through it now.
Hmm.
You may, and there's going to be a roadblock and you're going to stumble, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you can get back up and you can restart the race.
Right.
Take your time with yourself. Be kind to yourself. Nurture yourself. Take bubble baths. I can't tell you how much that means to me.
Yeah.
Just to lay in a tub with a lot of bubbles. And I like ducks. I don't know why I started collecting rubber ducks, but half of my tub literally is surrounded by ducks. And then I like to play with them and move them around and group them by holidays and group them by size and group them by color. So I have fun. I do things that bring me joy now.
Right.
That's my big word for the year is joy. What am I going to do that's going to bring me joy today?
I love that. I found that talking to so many people feel like shame or guilt when they put themselves before others. And that's the big struggle with women, especially, is
Mhm.
that they feel that guilt or that shame.
Yeah, we've been taught that. It's been hammered in. This is how you're supposed to feel. You're supposed to take care of somebody else. But I look at my younger sister, who's 11 years younger than me. She was not raised like I was. I was raised to be home for my spouse. My
Yeah.
mom just told us over the weekend that there were three of us bumper to bumper, and then a fourth. And then all that time later, she came
Yeah.
along. The upper group, we were all dressed. We were bathed, and basically, I feel like the Von Trapp family. We stood there when my dad got home, so he could see we were taken care of.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she, nah, doesn't care. She takes care of herself. She goes out to dinner with friends. She does what she pleases. So I've
Right.
been learning, watching her and how she lives life because she didn't grow up. You may as well have had two different sets of parents. Really strange.
I feel like a lot of times when you have that gap, parents get so tired and worn out, they don't have the same patience level. So the last one is always raised differently than
Oh,
the earlier ones.
a
Definitely.
1000%. She got away with more stuff than we ever would have. Absolutely. Absolutely.
How did you, so you basically you were learning how to get over that shame and guilt and live your life and give yourself self-care by watching and mentoring your youngest sister and seeing how she did it.
Hmm. Absolutely. Because the other people surround that I surrounded myself, they're either older, where they still have that philosophy, or
Right.
my age, where they have that philosophy. And it's just a challenge for me at times. I'll say I'll go out and meet you, and then I go, "Oh, can I? What?"
Right.
And it's funny because with I'm still learning to adjust to life without my dogs.
Right.
I'll have an appointment, go out and get a manicure, and then I'd set up dinner to meet with a girlfriend, and I go, "Oh wait, I have to go home." No, I don't have to go home. So it's incredible what we've learned through all of our different experiences, and that's who we are today.
Wow. Now, which self-talk habit made the biggest difference in rewiring your mindset from grief to growth?
Say that one more time.
So, what self-talk habit, what in your life made the biggest impact in your life when it came to going from grief to actually going to growth?
For me, it was getting out of the house every day and
Mm.
going somewhere and doing something and working.
Yeah.
It's funny, I'm watching a show on Netflix and she's got the same philosophy. I have to get out of the house. I have to keep busy because that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
I got pushed out of the house when I was a kid. You can't be inside the house and play. You had to play in the neighborhood. You had
Yeah.
to go to work when you were a teenager. I constantly got, makes me wonder now, why was I pushed out so much? But you know, having the business really saved me. It gave me a place to go. I was surrounded by people.
Yeah.
Um, it, Even though I didn't stay a full day because mentally I could not, just didn't have the stamina to do it.
Yeah.
It was getting out and about. It was finding people I had to have lunch with. I had a packed schedule, packed. For a
Mhm.
long time, I didn't want to see anybody. I just, and I couldn't talk to you on the phone. I would only text with you. Um, I know it was depression at the time, but that was my way of handling it, and that's okay.
It's okay.
So I noticed as I started getting myself out more and doing more, then I swung the other extreme and really did way too much of a packed life. So come the weekends, I was exhausted.
Right.
And now I have wonderful couple I go to dinner with on Saturday nights because they don't want to see me alone. So they're in their 80s. They act like they're in their 60s, and it's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, so many times people get insecure because if they're older, they don't want to hang out with someone younger, but it doesn't matter the age. It's the
Yeah.
mentality of the person because I've gone out with couples of all different age groups and I've gone out with couples that are a lot older than us, but they have the mentality of a 50 or a 60-year-old and you
Hmm.
have such a great time with these individuals because they're so youthful in their thinking and the way they act and they hold great conversations. It's not the age. It's the person, and it's all mindset and how we feel about ourselves.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love hanging out with my older friends because of their wisdom. And
Yeah,
I love learning how they lived their life and what times were like then. And then I
yeah,
have friends in their 40s because of their energy,
Mm-hmm.
is what I, really kind of pull myself towards people who are high energy and fun, loving, who have something to bring to my life.
Exactly.
Because trust
Exactly.
me, I know a lot of people in their 40s and 50s, and they act like they're in their 70s. So no, thank you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Exactly. And
yeah,
I find, when you do that, you just those people their mentality is very depressed. They have a lot of they just, I know a lot of people, especially you mentioned, getting out of the house. That was so important because I find when you stay in the house, you start to think a lot and then you start to get inside your head. And then, issues become worse than they are, or you develop issues that aren't even there. And you really can get yourself in a very deep depression by staying in the house and not doing productive things.
absolutely. It's very easy. You cocoon yourself in your own world. And sometimes I found myself, especially, and I noticed it last winter also, I just wanted to be inside. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to do anything. I have a group of friends I meet on Friday nights, and it was
Yeah.
like, I don't even feel like hanging out with you and drinking. So I think we go through these spurts in our life, regardless whether you're in grief or not, and
Yeah.
just realizing it's okay.
Yeah.
Give yourself permission to feel. You know, I just saw my mother over the weekend. She's 96 years old.
Wow.
And she can't feel her feelings. She was
Yeah.
never taught how to feel them. And she got upset with me because I was asking her feeling questions.
Mm.
I just want to understand her life and what it was like, because that's my heritage.
Yeah.
And she said, I never asked these questions to my mom. So why are you asking me?
Wow.
So I think it's important to feel your feelings, understand who you are as a being.
Yes.
We've all heard the saying, enjoy life because you're not here very long.
Right.
Ah, that hits home with me more and more every day because I'm closing in on the back. I used to say 5. I'm going to expand it to 6. Used to be 9, but I've shortened it. I mean, honestly, if you're not here to enjoy, why are you here? Honestly,
Exactly.
why are you here?
Yes. That that make that quote, people really should take to heart and really think about because there's so many people living life for the wrong reasons and they're not happy and they're not enjoying their lives, and that's one thing I think that could be an affirmation in itself. If I'm not enjoying life, then why am I here? What am I going to do to enjoy life? And
That's a big question to ask. What am I going to do? And sometimes after you've lost your spouse, your loved one, your dog, and you're alone, and you start asking, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing now? Where's my purpose in life?
yeah.
That's a monster question that takes time to unravel. Don't
Yeah,
expect to get an answer, from the heavens and get hit with the lightning bolt and go, hey, here it is. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
It takes time. That's why I say you've got to figure out who you are to find out what you want to do.
Right. And what was the first thing that you started to do that you found helped you figure out who you were as a person once your husband and your dogs had left your life and you were now by yourself? How did you figure out who you were?
Oh, it's a lot of deep introspection. It really is. I've got a huge piece of paper, a sticky pad. I'm not talking these tiny little things. I'm talking the big sheets on the back of a door. And I've got, questions back there that I have to answer for myself. Who am I? What am I about? What brings me joy? And I look at that, and then some days I'll go, yeah, that's me. And then other days I'll add something and then cross out something else. We're constantly evolving and changing.
Yes, that's so true. Now, what daily ritual movement is it breath work? Is it nutrition that help release the emotional weight that you were carrying?
Well, for me, I was carrying a lot of anger.
Hmm.
So I learned years ago to pound a pillow. I'd
Mm,
pound a pillow to get my anger out. I'd get in my car and scream. I would yell and cry in the shower. You've got to figure out what works for you. And for me, with anger and having so much of it pent up at the time, it felt good to strike something.
Yeah.
I've got to release all that energy that's running through the body.
Oh, yeah. I feel like sometimes when you repress so much emotion, you become numb as a person. If you don't let that emotion, come to base, and if you don't get it out, you start to
Right,
become numb and you start to lose who you are, how you feel, and then you're just here. But that's it. You're just here.
right. Yeah.
Now, how did you identify the people who could truly hold space for your healing? And how can this audience that we're talking to right now find healing in their circle of life?
You'll soon discover who's going to be in your circle about a couple weeks, a month later after the passing, after your loved one has left, because everybody will surround you for a couple of weeks and then they go back to their lives and you're going, where'd you go? What happened? What happened to me? Why aren't you with me?
Yeah,
So you'll soon discover the true friends who are around are the ones who stick around.
right.
Get into groups. Go find a group that you enjoy doing things in so you can build a new network of friends. It's interesting to me to really think about how people just disappeared after a month after Gino died.
Yeah,
Bye, see you. Well, it was nice knowing you too. Because I think they're so afraid. And it's the same thing with divorce. And divorce is part of grief also. I'm not
yes,
saying they have to leave the planet to experience grief. A breakup of any kind is a reason to go through grief. And people choose sides then. And you wonder, well, what's wrong with me? Why did you choose them over me?
right.
And then you start thinking in that mentality, and that's not good either. But it's important you find that group that you enjoy doing things. It'll take
Yeah,
time, but think about what you liked as a kid. What did you like to do? What did you like to play? You know, what experiences did you have that brought you happiness?
right.
I
That's
like playing sports.
hmm
So I started with pickleball. I
hmm
threw out my shoulder one time. I somehow got a tendon over a tendon when I went to serve a ball. Painful, painful experience. Would never play tennis again because I didn't want to throw that out again. Pickleball
Yeah,
is great. So, find it's that sport again.
yeah.
That was the activity that helped me. There's a gym around the corner. Oh my God, so many people. If you
Mhm.
can't find something at your gym,
Yeah,
because nowadays it's more than just going and working out, it's a social life.
right.
They do lots of social things through gyms.
Yes, that's very true.
So I would, that's another place you can find people. Go to your place of worship if you
Yeah.
have one. Tons of people there. There really are. I'm still in contact with the dog sitter
hmm
because she was a big part of my life for a long time. I don't want to lose contact with that.
Yeah.
And I want to
They,
get another dog one day, so, but not
mhm.
yet. Yeah.
They say, the best thing to do is that people should always keep the child within them. You should never lose that child within you. The person you were as a child should always stay within you, and you should never lose that person because that's what keeps you youthful. That's what keeps you happy. That's what keeps you going, is if you keep that child within. What do you think about that?
Oh, I completely agree with that. Completely. That, it's just another aspect of who you are. You've got ages when you were a child, you have ages as a teenager and on up. They're all different aspects, little personality pops of who you are.
Yeah,
Go back and talk to them. Write with your dominant hand a letter to them. Have them write back in the non-dominant hand. You'd be
right.
surprised at what comes back.
Yeah, that's a great
You know, I,
idea.
I also like to color. I love to color because I love color. So
Yeah,
get a coloring book. You'd be surprised when you really calm the mind. What happens when you do a quiet activity such as coloring? Who bubbles up to start talking?
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
They say it's very therapeutic too.
Yes.
Encourage it. They definitely encourage it. Now, when anniversaries or unexpected reminders hit, what is your go-to emotional first aid kit?
Well, in the first couple of years, I just cried and I didn't want to attend events, and that's okay. Again, give yourself permission to say to the family, I can't do Christmas with you this year. I am going to pass on Thanksgiving. But now, after it took me to about year 4 or 5 even that I start celebrating um, the birthdays, the anniversary, not so much anymore, because it's been almost 10 years and it's faded away. You hear people say, I can't hear their voice anymore. I can't hear his voice anymore. Um, but he's always in my life because that's a big part of the company.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about Dr. Tutera,
Mhm.
but I'd like to look for the positive, the good times that brought me the happiness when we were together. I can visually see the experiences, but even I've noticed that those are starting to drift.
Right. Right. And at what point did helping others become part of your own recovery? And why does this service is a part of helping you heal as an individual?
I had one person who truly helped me in my recovery, and moving through the different stages and just moving through life in general. Um, and I'm the kind of person, honestly, I don't go and talk to a lot of people because I don't want 15 different opinions coming back at me to cloud my own opinion. I
Exactly.
like my own opinion and I need to stay clear and focused on my thoughts and my feelings. So, but everybody's different. You know, I'm that person, and then others may be, I want the group and
Yeah.
I need the group.
I think that's a great opinion, though, because I feel like a lot of people do that. A lot of people ask so many different people an opinion of a certain situation or question, and they get all these different answers because everybody's different and everybody handles things differently. So you're never going to get the true answer. You're just going to get the answers that they think are right, that's good for them in their lives, but they're different people. It's really diving deep into yourself and really thinking about, like, it goes back to what you said, who you are, and then figuring out what your needs are and what's going to make you happy and what's going to be the best thing for you. But you can only answer that yourself, and we as a society, we see people all the time asking four, five, six different people the same question and getting all these different answers, and then sometimes making the wrong choices because they're not listening to what they really want to do.
That's right. And keep in mind, they'll say, oh, I know you better than you know yourself. I find that hard to believe
Mhm.
because honestly, think about this. You present yourself to this person the way they're perceiving you, not really the way that you are reflecting out to them. So everybody's got a different insight into who you are, and they're not living in your body to experience everything you go through day by day. You may
Yes.
be sharing with them, but you may share this much with them. You may share this much with somebody else. So you're going to get a
Right.
bigger answer back. You may share just a tiny little portion with this friend over here. So you're going to get a small little answer. It,
Right.
I'm just of that belief, and that's just me and who I am. My opinion matters most to myself.
I like that. I think that's 100% true, and I agree with you 100%. Now, what was the first moment you generally laughed again, and how can listeners invite themselves to have more of those moments when they're going through any type of grief?
Yeah, it's funny. We talked about this in this grief course that I'm going through, and you'll notice one day that you just let out a laugh, and then you can either enjoy it or criticize yourself for laughing again.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact moment I started to laugh. I had a guy in my life a year and so change later who brought me a lot of joy. He brought out the kid in me again. He brought out the fun in me. I remember we were on a hill, and I was just rolling down the hill having fun. I haven't done that since I was a little kid.
Wow.
So,
That's,
maybe sometime during that year, and it feels good to feel the lightness and the joy and the pleasure of being that small kid. So we're back to hooking into that inner child. Have
yeah.
fun with them. Let them come out and play.
Yeah. That's so true. Oh, it's so true. Now, if someone pressed pause right now and asked for one micro action to feel 1% lighter today, what would you give them?
Smile at yourself in the mirror and give yourself a big hug. And people don't know how to hug themselves. And all you have to do is wrap your arms around you. And it
Mhm.
is incredible what that can do. It truly is. I think we miss the hugs from other people is the big thing we miss.
Yeah. I think it's so meaningful. A hug from other people, people don't realize it has such an impact when especially when it comes from people you care about, and even people that come out and they listen to you and you can see they care and they give you a hug. It's powerful. It has
Hmm.
a powerful effect on that person that needs that hug to know that people care, people are out there, that they're not alone, and that they have support. And people should really consider when you see someone going through a tough time, give them a hug. Something, that you a hug and, maybe say, I care, I'm listening, my ears are on for you, that's all it takes. That's all it takes. And it's just to, change someone and make them put a smile on their face and to make them feel better as an individual.
Totally agree. Hugs have a huge amount of energy running through them. Make sure you do it heart to heart.
Yes.
So a lot of people normally hug the right side to the right side. You want to go left side to left side, heart to heart.
Yes, yes. Oh, that's true. I didn't even think about that. That's very true. Now, fast forward, let's look at 12 months from now. What does thriving look like for someone starting their grief healing journey?
So a year after their grief, is that what you're asking?
Yes. Hmm.
It could be different for a lot of people because some people still may be going through the grieving process. There is no timeline on grieving. That's just it.
Yes.
That first year of first is absolutely the worst.
Yeah.
I had to do it again in the second year of everything. It got a little easier, but there's something about hitting the 5 year mark that made a difference for me. And it seems like a really long way away, but looking back, oh my gosh, it flew by. It was really not, didn't take long at all. But you're living this day to day and you think you're just wearing the heaviest boots ever to get through the day.
Yeah.
It's all comes from the mind. Change your thoughts, then your emotions change, your feelings change. It all works together.
Yes. It definitely does. Now, if you had to take today's conversation, you wanted to pull out a couple important aspects, what would you say to people that you want them to remember and walk away with today?
Be kind to yourself. Truly get to know who you are. You're an incredible human being
Yeah.
and love yourself and tell yourself that I love myself. I
Yeah.
really like myself. If you can't say love, say I really like myself today.
Yes. That's very important because you have to be able to get to that point where you can look in the mirror and say, I like myself or
Mhm.
I love myself. And when you can get to that point, it makes a huge difference and how you're going to view your future life and how you're going to be and how you're going to grow and how you're going to move forward in life. And until you learn to love yourself and to like yourself, life is going to be very difficult. So that's a huge aspect, 100%, 100%. Now, CarolAnn, thank you for transforming pain into a playbook for hope. And for everyone listening, download Carol Ann's free her download. It's available on her podcast, and you will be able to listen to this episode. And there's many other episodes on grief, healing, joy, happiness, and how to really live a life that you want to live and maybe don't feel like you deserve to live. Carol Ann's here for you, and you can always contact her. So tell everybody how they can contact you if they want to reach out to you.
The email is response at S is in Sam, P is in Peter, H is in Henry, R is in Robert, T is in Tom.com.
And for people who don't know who you are and the services that you've been doing, do you want to tell everybody before we go a little about yourself, and what you do?
I'm carrying on the legacy my late husband and I started since the 90s of helping train and educate providers on how to use a bioidentical product called a small little pellet to regulate the hormones in women and men.
Ugh. I love you, and I really, you speak from the heart, and you have such great wisdom, and I thank you so much for coming on the show. Carol Ann is here. She records every Wednesday, and we put out the episode right away. So you'll have her, every week you'll have a new show and a new episode with more wisdom and more knowledge and more love on how to be joyful and how to be happy. And I thank you so much, CarolAnn, for coming on the show today. And as always, I look forward to our next discussion. And you make such a difference in my life. And I can only imagine the difference you make in other people who listen to you as well. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. I'm honored.
You have a great day.
You too.